This story that I'm about to share with you, many of you probably have heard about this story, but we have two 6-year-old children that was arrested. 6-year-olds. They was arrested, handcuffs put on them, taken in a police car, brought to a juvenile detention center, received a mugshot, fingerprints, all of that for a 6-year-old child and threw a temper tantrum. Let's go ahead and roll. I got 2 clips, but then we're going to discuss also the cop that did this.
I taught my TV with this remote.
Kaya Roll is like most little girls. She loves pink and has a cheery outlook on life.
Come sit down.
But after what her grandmother says happened on Thursday, the bubbly 6-year-old has little room to focus on school after she got a call from a school resource officer saying Kaya was arrested.
I said, what do you mean she was arrested? So there was an incident and she kicked somebody and she's being charged and she's on her way.
Marilyn Kirkland says her granddaughter's journey to the Juvenile Detention Center by Orlando police officers began at Lucius and Emma Dixon Academy Charter School.
She's arrested and she has a charge. She's charged with battery.
The disorienting chaos, too much for Kirkland to process.
She has a medical condition that we're working on getting resolved. So he says, what medical condition? So I said, she has a sleep disorder, sleep apnea. He says, well, I have sleep apnea and I don't behave like that.
The first grader handcuffed and carted off, where the grandmother says she was fingerprinted and even had a mugshot taken.
No 6-year-old child should be able to tell somebody that they had handcuffs on them and they were riding in the back of a police car and taken to a juvenile detention center to be fingerprinted, mugshot.
Kaya equally as upset.
Don't cry.
No, I'm good.
But happy to be home.
I felt sad that my grandma was sad. And I really missed her.
I want to thank you all for coming, and at this time I'd like to introduce the chief of my juvenile division, Michael Dean. Cindy, she is the director of our community outreach, and Amanda runs our conviction integrity unit. I want to thank you all for coming. On Thursday of last week, 2 very young children were arrested. I was advised that it was a 6-year-old little girl and a little boy as well. Since that time, there have been outcries for justice, and I want this community to know that I hear you. I also want you to know that when it comes to little elementary age children, we will not negotiate justice ever. Today, the healing can start. I can assure you that there will be no criminal prosecution for a misdemeanor battery for these elementary children in my name or on my watch. Unlike some, I will not presume guilt or dangerousness of a child based upon any demographic. I want to be clear, at no point did I or my Juvenile Bureau Chief, Michael Dean, have any intention on proceeding with the prosecution of these children. I'm extremely proud of Mr. Dean and his actions on Thursday, because in no uncertain terms, he said that the Juvenile Detention Center was not a place for a 6-year-old child. There is protocol and a criminal justice process that did not allow my office to intervene and dismiss the charges before today. Case numbers are generated by our clerk's office, and it is only at that point that I, as a state attorney, am authorized to act. A case number pertaining to the 6-year-old girl was provided to my office this morning, and the charges were dropped this morning. At this point, we have not received a case number for the other child, but when we do, and a case number is assigned, it too will be immediately dismissed. While I am extremely sensitive to the concerns of those who were identified as victims, and my office has reached out to speak to them, I refuse to knowingly play any role in the school-to-prison pipeline at any age. These very young children are to be protected, nurtured, and disciplined in a manner that does not rely on the criminal justice system to do it. Systems are not designed to raise our children, people are. When we rely on the criminal justice system to raise children, let us not be shocked at the pain in the communities, the mental health crisis, and the inarticulable dysfunction that is so pervasive within the system and elsewhere. We must explore better options as a state. We must raise the expectations of how we respond in difficult situations. This is not a reflection of the children, but more of a reflection of a broken system that is in need of reform. It is time to address juvenile legislation in ways that better protect the interests of children and their development. It is our job as criminal justice professionals to recognize victims in the pursuit of justice. We are not here to create victims because we feel inadequate. I am pleased to note that I have been in contact with Orlando Police Chief Rallone, who has in no uncertain terms said that he does not wish for these children to be prosecuted. He specifically requested that the charges be dropped, and I commend his integrity and his consistency that he has shown. The respect that I have for Chief Rallone is second to none. In closing, I want to repeat that the criminal process ends here today. The children will not be prosecuted, and just as importantly, I am looking into options that may reverse the legal damage, such as removing the arrests from the children's records. If you have any questions, I'll take them now.
So as you heard from the grandma, you also heard the district attorney, and you remember this particular district attorney. She was in a video a few years ago where a cop pulled her over and was being rude to her and didn't know that she was actually the district attorney. I don't know if you remember this particular lady from that video. Now, the cop, let's put him up, Dennis Turner. He's been on the force 22 years. A black man that sat there and put handcuffs on a 6-year-old child. Could you please explain to me, Dennis Turner, why would you put handcuffs on a 6-year-old? A 6-year-old. If this child is quote unquote throwing a temper tantrum, that's what children do at that age. It happens. You deal with the child and then go on. See, this is why I don't like those cops in schools. I don't like it because they're doing things like this. Then when you really need the cop for something, like in Parkland, when you need the cop for something, the cop is hiding while the shooter is in there shooting up kids. He's hiding. That guy got fired. That guy got charged, rightfully so. But what do we have cops in schools for? Kids get into some scuffle or fight or whatever, the cop putting charges on them, when it should be the school administration handling it. Maybe they get suspended. Maybe they have some sort of on-campus suspension or whatever they choose to do with them. They want to send them to an alternative school, whatever they want to do. It should be handled through the administration of the school, not criminal charges. That's going too far. What kind of nation have we become where it's okay to put handcuffs on 6-year-old children? Oh, okay. Well, what am I saying? This is the same nation that would put 6-year-old, 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 2-year-old children in cages too, on the border. Now, that border situation, it needs to be handled, but the way they're handling those children is just wrong. So it don't surprise me, but that's the history of America, because black children have been ripped away from their families. Black children have been enslaved just as much as black adults have been enslaved. But they do this to children because this system is just straight evil. Yes, the guy has been fired. The chief fired him. But the fact is, it's not the first time this has happened. There was a video and some pictures of even a white kid that was handcuffed by the cops. And they say they did it rough to him. So why are you attacking children? We see the race soldiers attacking teenagers. Same state in Florida, punching them, pepper spraying them. Why are you putting these roid rage cops a lot of times in schools? You got this idiot in the school. 22 years on the police force, you would think you have a lot of common sense by then. You've been on the job, you would understand what's a threat and what's not a threat. And if a 6-year-old girl is a threat to you with her temper tantrum, then first of all, you're not a man. Obviously, you can't be a parent, because a parent knows children when they see them. They know how to deal with little kids. But this is sick. This is utterly sick. And we have black people that will cut our throats in a minute. In a New York minute, they will cut our throats. When I seen his picture, I just put my head down and said, I'm so sick and tired of these bootlicking house Negroes, man. I'm like, come on, bruh. I mean, why would you? I just can't even fathom. That's why I say I'm so glad my child is not in these public schools, because these public schools is horrible. They the worst. You put that guy in the school. Really charges? Well, a prosecutor has to drop him? What does that say about America? That you would charge a 6-year-old? Well, what does that say about you? You tout yourself as the greatest country in the world, but other countries not walking around here putting charges on 6-year-olds. I mean, it's sick. It is beyond sick what this nation has become. Very, very sick. And you wonder why a lot of black people are starting to look elsewhere, saying, man, I may have to take my family out of here and try something else. Because the morality of this nation is gone. There's no morality here. It's just evil. You don't have family structure because of this evil surroundings in this nation. Children aren't respected. Women aren't respected. If you can't protect your children and your women and your elderly, what does that say about your nation? Those would be considered the weakest among you. Now, I don't care what no women say. I ain't weak. Traditionally, women, children, and elderly people was protected. They're considered weaker. And that's why people would always say women and children first, etc. That's why. But this nation is a godless nation. Very, very godless nation. Obviously, we can see what we allow in society, especially that Democrat Party and what they push more than anybody else. But this whole story is sick. It doesn't fathom in my mind how, if I was a cop, I'm going to put some handcuffs on a 6-year-old. A 6-year-old. Yeah, I tell you. Well, leave me a comment, let me know what you think about this particular story, ladies and gentlemen. It just never cease to amaze me, the stories that will come across our desk here that we have to report on. I mean, when I think that, yeah, this one was pretty bad, you always surprise me with something else all the time.